Tonight on the Fifth Chapter, after 3 years in maize and blue, a Wolverine football player turns his back on the program to don the green and white. How angry should Michigan fans be over this traitor's controversial decision? 1 week after winning the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, Saddiq Bey earns another honor. So just how good are he and the other young Pistons as their playing time increases? And as NFL teams weigh what to do with their key free agents, Dennis and Brian play to tag or not to tag with the franchise tag. Join the conversation by commenting live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. This is the Fifth Chapter with Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman. He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter. That's right. Welcome to the Fifth Chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian, and we're ready to go for episode number 82 on what I think we can all agree is the biggest day of college basketball in 2021 in the state of Michigan so far.
It's pretty exciting, chap. I told my wife that, with it being cold last week and everything, I didn't want to move, but I said, if I did, I'd want to go to Florida, California, Hawaii, or Arizona. Did I do that right? Russell Wilson, that passive-aggressive list?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's, I don't want to get traded, but if I do, Cowboys, a couple of these other teams, yeah, that's a weird situation I think everyone's going to want to follow. I don't think he's going to move, but if the right team offers the I don't know, maybe the number 2 overall pick like the Jets and some other picks, then perhaps it happens. I don't know. We'll see. But
he's got a no-trade clause. He's got Dallas on there. Dak Prescott, a tag and trade for Russell Wilson. Let's go. Maybe the Cowboys throw something in.
I'll say this. If I was Seattle, I wouldn't be making any moves. That's for certain. But definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in for episode number 82. We've got 5 more fantastic chapters for you. Thanks to all who are watching via YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch, and to those who are checking out the podcast, which is available about an hour after each show ends on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate in each show by sending in your feedback via Facebook Live, via YouTube, and via Twitch. Dennis will be reading it throughout the course of the show. Let's take a look at today's book. And as you can see in the second chapter, Saddiq Bey is getting even more recognition. We'll tell you what that recognition is and how the Pistons are faring with more playing time. In the third chapter, what should the price tag be for Kenny Galladay? One expert says that the Lions could get a second-round pick. Would that be fair compensation? In the fourth chapter, we bring in our intern Brian Jelinek for a game we like to play. At least we're going to hope we like to play it, and it's to tag or not to tag with some big free agents around the NFL. And then in the fifth chapter, we'll try to win you some money with the major wager. But Dennis, let's start off with the first chapter, and that takes us to the Big Ten Gridiron. Ben Van Sumeren was not a big-time player at Michigan over the last 3 years. He was a 3-star, played some fullback, some running back, and then played 76 snaps on defense at linebacker for the Maize and Blue this past year. Then I guess his family had enough. Hours after his brother Alex, a 4-star defensive tackle, decommitted from Michigan a few weeks ago, Ben entered the transfer portal on February 12th. Now he's got a new home. It's in the state of Michigan. It's not a MAC school. Ben Van Sumeren emerged from the transfer portal as a Michigan State Spartan. He's going to the green and white. He's going to Mel Tucker. And you think, well, he could have gone to some other Big Ten school. He could have gone to some other school in Michigan, but he chose Michigan State. Dennis, I saw your thumbs down. What do you think about this guy choosing the in-state rival? And when a player leaves, do you really care where he goes?
Normally, I don't. I get it. Michigan brought in a new defensive coordinator that's going to run a 3-4, and Summerin's more of a middle backer, didn't really fit into that 3-4. I also get that his brother Alex, the defensive tackle, who's a 4-star, he doesn't fit in the 3-4 scheme either. So I understand him decommitting and not wanting to go to Michigan. But let's just be honest, it's weird. It's weird to transfer to your bitter rival. It's weird if he would have picked Michigan State. It would have been weird if he'd have picked Ohio State. Anywhere else, you get. But it's like, the old Civil War times, the Hatfields and McCoys. Be like over there shooting the Hatfields, put your gun down, walk across the ditch, go over there, pick up, start shooting again. Are you a Hatfield or you're a McCoy? You get it if you're in high school and you like both schools. You're wrestling over your decision. Maybe even like, what was the guy's name? Rashawn Penny, who was committed to Michigan State and then flipped. You kind of get that. You're trying to, but once you go and you're there, it's weird.
Yeah, this is something like this always catches my attention when a player transfers to a rival, and it to me suggests there's either some real beef or some real bad blood. And if I was a Michigan fan, I wouldn't like that, even if the guy wasn't any good. And Ben Van Sumeren wasn't an impact player on Michigan's defense. We know Michigan's defense wasn't any good last year, so what does that say about him? But look, I think that you make a good point about how they were changing up the defense, so perhaps there wasn't a fit for either Van Sumeren. But oftentimes when teams make a decision to change how they are going to coach things up philosophically, the players decide to stick around anyway because they like the school, whether they're a player that's committed and wants to go there or a player that has been in the program for a couple of years. The fact that he decided to decommit his brother, and the fact that he decided to go to the transfer portal and not go to Indiana, not go to Wake Forest, not go to Eastern Michigan, not go to Maryland, but go to Michigan State, I think suggests that there is potentially some bad blood there. And because it happened just hours after his brother went into the portal, I wonder if maybe the new staff said, hey, Alex Van Sumeren, we got no place for you, or something like that, and that got under the Van Sumeren family's skin.
Well, I can tell you that Michigan really wanted Alex Van Sumeren. He's more highly rated than his brother, and defensive tackle, in-state, all the things that you're looking for. I don't know about bad blood, but it'd be like you have a brother, Chap? You don't have a brother.
I don't. I have a sister.
Well, you know what? If you had a brother and he was married and he got divorced, and then 6 months later you married your brother's ex-wife, that would be uncomfortable. That's what this is. This is uncomfortable. It's it's weird. I don't know about bad blood. I've seen it in other situations. Dan Dockage, the ESPN basketball commentator, his son, he was at Michigan, kind of buried on the bench. He transfers, and you get it. He's like, yeah, he's going to transfer. But he transferred to Ohio State.
Yes.
I don't know. That was.
He was a traitor.
That was weird. But at least in that situation, you looked and he was getting some time there. But it is, and even though Bo Schembechler coached at Ohio State for 5 years, that's different. It's different when you're a coach. It's different if your wife takes a job at Michigan State, you go move up to East Lansing, and then it's different if your kid, you went to Michigan and your kid wants to go to Michigan State, so you throw on the Michigan State jersey. But when you're a player in the midst of that, it's weird.
I think it's also traitorous if you do it as a coach, particularly if it's a lateral move. Like you think about Al Washington and Borges a couple of years ago. They went for identical positions. I'm sorry, yeah, Madison and Washington. They took identical positions at Ohio State after being at Michigan for years. I thought that was a traitorous move by each of those individuals, especially because
Al Washington was an Ohio State guy, so he's an Ohio guy. That made sense. And
no, I get it. Even so, he was at Michigan and went directly to Ohio State. There wasn't like a stop in between.
No, I understand what you're saying, but if you're getting more money in that situation, which I think both, Madison did, he got more money.
I'm sure they did.
And Al Washington, an Ohio guy, he might even have played at Ohio State. So, to me, that made sense.
Well, and I'll give you one more, and this is probably not something that hits to you that much, but Larry Johnson Sr. was a longtime assistant coach for Penn State football, and after Penn State hired Bill O'Brien, He left, which was fine, but he didn't just choose any school. He chose Ohio State. It wasn't Minnesota, wasn't Nebraska, wasn't Florida State, wasn't USC. He chose the Deep South Buckeyes, and I still don't like him for that.
Yeah, you know what? Like I said, I get it with the coaches and everything else. I don't get it with the players.
Anywhere else.
There you go.
Anywhere else.
Yeah, let's see. Let's get to the feedback on this. Van Sumeren, traitor, or are you cool? Let's look here. People getting in on some college hockey and some softball and some draft questions, which we will get to coming up. Jelinek says not a traitor at all. We'll get his thoughts on that later on in the show. He seems to be cool with it. You know, it's one thing. Some people just look at things. They're not as, Chapman, you're a huge, and I am too, a huge college sports fan. And so when it gets involved, anything going on, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, it's people get really ticked off and everything. But, I don't know if it's the vast majority, but there's a lot of people out there, especially ones that didn't go to the school, that they'll look at it and they'll be like, hey, I'll root for, I like Michigan, but I'll root for Michigan State too until they play Michigan State. There's a lot of people like that.
I get that.
Kind of casual about it.
I get that they're casual, but if you are a Michigan football player, then you don't, how could you secretly casually like Michigan State? Like, you're supposed to hate Michigan State. They're supposed to be the little brother. If you're Andrew Dockich, how could you casually like Ohio State enough so that you could get a degree from Michigan and transfer to be a graduate transfer and try to get a degree from Ohio State? Like, that's what I don't get. When I went to Penn State, I didn't casually like Ohio State, and I grew up hating Ohio State. But, I mean, I don't understand how you could casually like them enough or only casually hate them enough to eventually transfer there and then don the clothing, don the jersey, want to get your degree from there. That's what I don't get. This isn't being like a fan. This is a player. This is being a student.
Yeah, and you know what? They're going to get a lot of grief. It's like if you're accepting that, even if you like the situation or whatever else, and you go there, you don't have animosity, people are going to towards you. I mean, you know that, and you sign up for that. And then so if you go to the school and you've gone through as a freshman, that's all they do is tell you, how they hate Ohio State, how they hate Michigan State, how they're bastards and everything else. And then you're like, hey, cool, I'm going to go join them. So yeah, you're gonna hear it a lot, down through the years. So I would never think about doing that once you get in there, but it's just a weird situation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Teal, you ready to turn the page to the second chapter? I
am ready.
All right, let's do it.
Getting us to the Pistons here, who are 9-23. They've got a 72-game slate, so that's not quite to the halfway point. So 32 and 72, 36. 44. What's that?
They got to get to 36 to be halfway
36.
done.
So yeah, it's like 44% right now of the season. The Pistons have a lot of rookies on their team. Chap, how are they doing?
Well, let's take a look at what Yahoo Sports is saying, because last time we checked out their rankings, that not a single one of the Pistons drafted by Troy Weaver, not one of the 4, not one of the 3 first-round picks was on this list. But as we take a look at it today, things have changed just a little bit. At the top, you can see, where is this? A guy the Pistons pass up on, Tyrese Halliburton, the number 1 rookie, 12.8 points per game. Number 2, LaMelo Ball. How is he behind Tyrese Halliburton with 14.6 points a game, 6.1 boards, 6.1 assists? I think that's dead wrong. Anthony Edwards with that monster dunk, 14.3 points per game. He's in 3rd. In 4th place, Emmanuel Quickley of the Knicks, 12 points a game. 5th place, Saddiq Bey, 9.5 points a game, 3.8 boards a game. First rookie in NBA history to go a perfect 7 for 7 from three-point range. If you were to look at the rest of the top 10, you would see guys like number 6 is Jason Tate of Houston. Number 7, Patrick Williams of the Bulls. Number 8, Memphis has Desmond Bane. Number 9, Denver's Facundo Campazzo, a 29-year-old. And then number 10, Theo Maledon. And to see Bey up there at number 5, he's really started to heat up, and I think he deserves to be on this list. I don't think he deserves to be in the top 5 because one of the things that popped out to me is, where in the world is James Wiseman? I know he's missed a few games, but it's not like he's missed. Yeah. Well, he's back. He's been back for a couple of games, but he's played over 20 games, and for him to not be in the top 10 at all doesn't make any sense. But you look at Bey, 7 points a game in the 3 games in December, a little over 7 points a game in January. Then coinciding with Blake Griffin deciding he wanted out, he's at 13.1 points per game in February. You're doing that as a rookie, and that's significant. He's had at least 27 minutes a game in each of his last 7 games. And, this is a guy that a lot of us thought was the best value of the 3 first-round picks, and right now he's showing that. He's got experience at Villanova. He's showing that he doesn't look lost on the court, and his three-point shot is just absolutely deadly. So he's taking advantage of the playing time that he's getting.
Yeah, he's shooting over 40%, and the name of the game is being able to have somebody that can knock it down from downtown. And Saddiq Bey has shown that he's been able to do that. So he's, I hope we're not just constantly referring to the Boston game, the Player of the Week. Hopefully he has more, but he has, especially since Blake Griffin is, down. He's been into the starting lineup, and he's got double figures, so it's all right. I thought there was such a rush, hey, this guy's a superstar. So he's not a superstar, but he's a nice player. Mm-hmm. And I watched a little feature on him where he was in the D.C. area and he was walking around the neighborhood. And you know what? You listen to him, you're like, man, he's a nice guy, nice kid. He's somebody that you can hopefully see around here for a long time. And he could be part. And really, when you're thinking about all the picks and what the Pistons are doing over this year and next year, they're building toward the future. They're not trying to make the ace spot or the play-in game. They're not trying to do that next year. This is a team that
I think they will try for that next year.
Well, I hope they don't. But, maybe they will. You could be right. But, you're hoping to add a player that, could be part of a championship team. And because of what he does at 3-and-D, like he's mentioned in that article, maybe he can. And, there I was last night watching the game, and Amp Lee's kid, Saban Lee, was out there. And I'm like, let's see a little bit. I hadn't watched too much of him. He looked pretty good. I was like, hey, look at this guy. He's running around here a little bit. And, if Stewart could extend his range a little bit, Isaiah Stewart, he could be something. So I try not to get way too, fired up about any of these guys. Halliburton, I didn't like him at Iowa State. He was a sophomore. So, he was a year older than these other point guards, like Killian Hayes. And I watched went over on YouTube and watched a couple of Iowa State games. And, I'm watching him, and he's super skinny. And I just couldn't get over his jump shot. He's like falling off to the left, and then he kind of pushes it over to the right. I'm like, I can't take this kid.
But it goes in.
The top 7. I know it goes in. I got to give it to him. He's more athletic than I thought. Maybe he can really run the floor. And as skinny as he is, he's got some, strength on there because he can go up and rise up and throw it down on people. So he's nice. The Pistons are playing him on Friday, too. We'll get a closer look of him. And I know even early in the season when he was knocking down his jumpers, he was telling everybody, he's like, oh, you think this is broken? He's shooting it. So, yeah, it broke right in your eye. And you saw a couple of the highlights there. And, he's down in the corner and guys are giving him the business and he's knocking it down. He's looking over at the bench. So he's got the swagger and he's got the game to back it up. But I look at that 3 and I just I get what the Pistons were doing there. But, it's their job to come up and make sure, especially with the point guard. There's a lot of players that you could look at, but they needed a point guard, and these were the 2. And then it looks like the Pistons, at least here in the early going, picked the wrong one.
Oh yeah, and I'll say this regarding the point guard situation. We just talked about how Saban Lee was taking advantage of his situation with Blake Griffin not playing. But Saban Lee, these last 3 games, has taken advantage of his situation too, because Killian Hayes is out, Derrick Rose is a Knick, and you got DeLon Wright who's out for 2 or 3 weeks. And in his last 3 games, he's had 12 points, 21 points, and 13 points. So this is a second-round pick who was at Vanderbilt for 3-4 years. He's taken advantage of his opportunity. In those 3 games, he's racked up 13 assists and 7 steals. He's shooting 17 for 26 on the field. So he's making the most of his opportunity as well. And I'm not saying that he's going to be some Hall of Famer or some superstar, but given the way that Lee is playing and given the serviceable way that Dennis Smith Jr. is playing, Hayes is in trouble when he gets back. Like he's got to really step up when he comes back, or else I would be okay with Lee continuing to play. It's only been 3 games, But
well, yeah, that's fine. He's not in trouble, like the trouble of maybe not getting right back into the starting lineup, maybe having a spoon feed his playing time. Yeah, I'm with you on that. But I think just the one thing that's catching me a little bit off guard, like, and I'm glad that people are like semi excited and watching the Pistons. But I saw our boy today tweeting Justin Rose from Channel 7. He was calling. He's like. Troy Weaver, a genius with these 4 picks. I'm like, I don't know, genius. Like, he's made some picks here. We're watching them, and
the last month or so, they've looked better.
When we talked, when you're right. There's some promise there. There's some promise. I'm not ready to talk about genius picks.
No, I'm not ready to talk about them either. But when we were talking about this same list 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were saying, how come none of these guys are doing anything? And now Bey deserves to be in the top 10. I don't know about 5, but he deserves to be in the top 10. You look at Saban Lee; these last 3 games have been promising. So you'll take that. You'll absolutely take that.
I agree with you here. Keith, who jumps in on the live chat. And I should tell everybody that, I didn't even have the Facebook chat up there. I apologize. I usually have it, and I'm looking right at it, see who's watching, and all those things. That's my bad. So Keith says, Bey deservedly getting the attention, but I saw enough of Saban Lee on tape in college, and the recent playing time here, the kid's explosive and doesn't appear to be rattled on the floor. So Keith liking what he sees from Saban Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jelinek likes, he's talking about Killian Hayes. Says he really needs to play better when he comes back. He really needs to step it up when he's healthy. That doesn't surprise me. Little Brian Chapman saying, pretty much what you were saying there. So there you go. Keith, though, says Hayes is a bust. I told you guys on draft day he was going to be a bust, and that Halliburton was the better prospect. And then
I think it's fair to say,
I
think it's fair to say Halliburton might be or is the better prospect, but I'm not going to say he's a bust because he's only played 7 games. They've been 7 really bad games, but it's only been 7 games for him.
Yeah, bust. It is too early to say that.
Yeah. One last thing about this list. I mentioned I don't like Wiseman not being on the list at all when he's played in 22 games. That's a heck of a lot of games to be left off, and he's averaging 12 and 6. The other 2 things I don't like about this, Ball should be number 1, no question about that, and they labeled Saddiq Bey a guard when he's clearly a forward.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to get too wrapped up about that.
I'm angry.
I'd like to see him put it on the floor a little bit more, see if he's got any kind of footwork out there at the 3-point line. Because the one thing I look at is he's like just a set shooter, just stands out there at the 3-point line. If we could see him moving around a little bit more,
he can do a little step back
to see that.
For a mid-range jumper sometimes around the the free throw line. But
his 2-point field goal percentage is pretty bad. But you know what? He's probably. I don't want to. I went back and I was reviewing the tape and I was listening to what I had to say about Saddiq Bey and I made it sound like he was some kind of bust or something. I just want, he wasn't jumping off the screen to me. He's just standing out there at the 3-point line, going like this and firing a couple up. And he's living off the Boston game. But, he said, you're going to have some ups and downs.
I think he's doing more than that.
Team. I think he's all right. He's promising. I'm not.
He didn't deserve
talking about let's get him in the 3-point contest, or maybe if somebody else gets hurt, he'll be an all-star.
Well, 3-point contest is okay.
Genius, like your boy Rose said, but
wilting Rose. Look, he doesn't deserve. If he's in the 3-point contest, I'm okay with that. They have nobody's in all the time. I don't think he deserved the Player of the Week. Does he deserve to be the 5th best rookie? I don't know about that, but he's arguably the 5th best rookie, certainly in the top 10. But he's promising right now, and I think we all will take that. 19th player, arguably 5th best rookie.
Yeah, let's look at Facebook here. Matt Derry watching the show. He commented on some Pistons. Syracuse must not be playing tonight. And let's look here. Jelinek says, I don't know what the bosses think, but I think they absolutely should demand a second. I think he's talking about Galladay, which we're going to get to coming up. Key says Hayes and Sekou should be in the G League for at least a year or 2. Well, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Again, both of those guys are 19 years old. Sekou, the Pistons did him a disservice putting him up there last year as an 18-year-old. And again, I just refer people to Pascal Siakam, a guy that played at New Mexico State for New Mexico for a couple of years, and then it took him a couple of years of the NBA. Like, I'm not expecting anything from Sekou even next year. I'm the following year, but yeah, put him in the G League.
Yeah, I don't like that opinion.
I know you don't.
He has to show something. All right, let's turn the page to the third chapter. And in the third chapter, that takes us to the same old Lions and wide receiver Kenny Golladay. The Lions have to decide if they want to franchise Kenny Golladay pretty soon over the next couple of weeks. And if they use that franchise tag on him, they would have to decide if they want to keep him or trade him to another team. Now, the question would become, what would they want for him if they were to trade him away? And we found this article on NBCSports.com, courtesy of The Athletic. And here's what it says. It says the Athletics' Nick Baumgartner reports a second-round pick might be on the table if the Lions. Hold on a second. Get out of here. Running into our show. Reports a second-round pick might be on the table if the Lions trade Kenny Golladay this offseason. Baumgartner conceded a second-round draft pick in exchange for Galladay was a highly optimistic outcome from Detroit, but possible considering his production when healthy. Obviously, he only played 5 games last year, and also says Baumgartner said the Lions signing Galladay to the franchise tender before trading him feels like a manageable option. Dennis, what do you think about the possibility of the Lions getting a second-round pick in exchange for Galladay? Would you make that trade?
Yeah, I would make that in a second, and I think the Lions organization would as well. I think there's a couple of things that you need to look at, where the Lions are at and what they said when they took over this new regime. Holmes was talking about patience, and they're taking the long view. I don't know if Dan Campbell said exactly that when he was talking about chewing legs or whatever else, but the organization, like people, I think they got lost a little bit because normally the Lions fans in the off season, once you get to free agency and once you get to the draft, this is our Super Bowl and the season's in the rearview mirror, and you start talking about this team making the playoffs and everything else. But 2023 is what I think these guys are aiming for. And why would you take 2 seasons essentially off? Well, you build up as much draft capital as you can. You get your cap situation in the best possible situation that you can there as well. And then you look to strike in 2 years. And with Kenny Golladay, it's really going to hammer it home for Lion fans. If they tag Galladay and move him for a second rounder, that would be fantastic. If they tag him and got a third rounder for him, it would be okay. If they tagged him, they could rescind the tag, and then they would get a third rounder, not this year, but the following year, which again, for this Lions organization, who you don't want to say they're, outright tanking, but transitioning and, all the rebuilding, was it the Holmes didn't like that word. He was retooling, but when, you say rebuilding, you are not expecting to compete for the playoffs this year. So getting a pick down the line doesn't hurt the Lions at all. And I think the one thing that you look at, because you get that third rounder not in this draft, but you would get it in 2022 if you rescind the tag and just let him walk, is that when Jarvis Landry went from the Dolphins to the Browns, instead of getting a third round pick the following year, they got a 4th and a 7th in that year. I would be surprised if it seems like, would you say optimistic to get a second rounder? It seems pretty optimistic. If I had to guess, if the Lions got something for Galladay, they would get a third this year, which, you can usually, a pick in the hand of this year's draft is better than one down the line. But with this Lions team retooling, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, look, if a team offered the Lions a second round pick, and I was the Lions, I would not have to think very long about what to do. It would be best for the Lions to take that second round pick and to save the money. It would be best for Kenny Golladay to move on to a team that's probably going to have a better chance to win in 2021 than the same old Lions, because he's not going to do anything here. Honestly, I think that because if he walks away, the Lions would get a compensatory third-round pick in 2022, then that's where the bottom has to be. If a team wants to acquire Kenny Golladay, they have to either give up a second-round pick or a third-round pick in either this year or next year. And let's not forget that a third-round pick next year would be more valuable than a compensatory pick, because the third-round picks or the compensatory picks come after the end of the third round. So
nice point.
Yeah, well, that's
I didn't consider. I was just going to say, what's it matter if they get a third-rounder compensatory or from another team? But you're right, it'll be a higher pick.
It could be 20 picks higher, it could be 5 picks higher, but it would be higher. So if the Lions are able to get a second round pick either this year or next year, that's a heck of a lot more valuable. And I would be sprinting to Martha Ford's office, which is right next door, because she has to be right in the middle of everything. Yeah, I'd sprint in 7 steps. I'd be there and say, hey, we can get a second round pick for Galladay, and then pull the trigger. But I would also add this, and perhaps we'll get into this in the 4th chapter. If I was a team looking to trade for a wide receiver, I would not be trading a second-round pick for Kenny Golladay. He would not be my top option. My top option would be Allen Robinson. It seems like he wants to leave Chicago. He's a better wide receiver than Kenny Golladay, and he wasn't hurt for most of last year. Like, if I'm trading a second-round pick, I don't want a guy who missed over 2/3 of last season. So from that perspective, a second-round pick for a guy who barely played last year, yeah, I'm taking it. For a third-round pick, I'm taking it.
Yeah, I like Robinson better than Kenny Golladay too. But Kenny Golladay is pretty good. Look at the contested rate,
healthy, yes.
The catch rate for the last 2-3 years, and Kenny Galladay's number 1. Now Robinson's up there. I think he's number 2. So these guys are both pretty good wide receivers. Where you're talking about these guys are legit number 1s when you're looking out there. And one thing about Galladay, I saw that the Giants, were interested. Of course, if they said if he wasn't tagged, I was like, yeah, I would assume that they would be. Let's get to some of the feedback here. Paul W.'s like, what'd you think of Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft who came out? And did you see that, chap?
I saw that he put out the draft, and I saw this was his first ever mock draft with trades, but I did not look at the draft yet.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. The Lions were sitting there at 7, and Justin Fields fell to the Lions at number 7 in Kiper's draft. He had the Falcons moving up to 2 to take Wilson from BYU. So he's sitting there, and then the Lions got Justin Fields. They fall in his lap, and the Lions move out. They traded back. They traded with the Niners. They traded out of the top 10. He had the Patriots moving up to number 9 to take Trey Lance, which
what did the Lions get?
Well, it cut off at 10, so I don't know where the Niners are at in the draft. You would have. I know you're a premium ESPN insider. You'd be able to go in there and look and see who they get. But I'm guessing they didn't get a quarterback because those 4 were off the board. Oh yeah, Mac Jones went in the top 10 too from Alabama.
Mac Jones.
Isn't that the quarterback from Alabama's name? Okay.
Yeah. I was saying Mac Jones because I'm thinking, why in the world would he be going in the top 10?
Hey, Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida, the Jets took him at 4. And I know earlier this week I saw a story about don't be surprised if the Lions at 7 would take Kyle Pitts. I was like,
we got a message, I think it might have been from Paul W. on Facebook saying, hey, if the Lions are sitting there at number 7 and they've got Pitts and they've got Micah Parsons, what do you think about taking Pitts so that the Lions could have 2 top tight ends? And I mean, that's like the most Millen or the most Bob Quinn thing ever is let's just get another tight end. The Lions have the worst linebackers in the NFL. They have a Pro Bowl, I don't know if he should be, but they have a Pro Bowl tight end. Go get yourself a guy who could be a Pro Bowl linebacker.
Nothing better than for Detroit Sports Talk to say, hey, what do you think about taking Kyle Pitts at number 7? Let's go to Jim in Roseville. What do you think about it? All right, let's see here. Point guards. Keith says, I hate the Lions. We too know that. Rather you read through the news on Lamar Jackson. That was below. Interesting that the Ravens really need a number 1 wide receiver, and Galladay would really help Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. You're right about that, Keith. The Ravens need a bigger wide receiver. I mean, they got Hollywood Brown, and you know how desperate they were that they had Des Bryant that they signed late in the year. But yeah, they need a bigger target. And Lamar Jackson, contested catch rate. I think Kenny G would be a team that I would link up with Baltimore. I think that's spot on.
All right, Dennis, let's turn the page to the fourth chapter.
Yeah, that gets us to Brian Jelinek, who is on the chats back and forth. He's got a lot to say about everything, which we like, and that's why he's with us here. We don't want him to just sit there and say, I don't have anything to say. Jelinek, what's up, man? How you doing?
How is everybody? It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man.
Yep,
you
good
kind
to
of look
bring you
like
back.
you went from being like a big sports fan to now you look like you're hanging out in the living room.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I just changed areas for the evening to see if I liked it better. I think I like the sports den better though.
Yeah.
There's
not
nothing
that I
in
don't
your
like
background to suggest you're a sports fan. It suggests in the background that maybe you're an art fan.
Yeah, we're in like a weird jail cell asylum. I don't really know. It's not great.
Jail cell. It
It's
has to be
not
the
great.
nicest jail cell I've ever seen. Like that would if you were in a jail cell, the prison rates would skyrocket.
I have that effect on people. I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
So what do you think before we get to something here and talk about some tags? Any of the stories jump out at you from the Pistons to Kenny G or Van Sumeren?
I think the Van Sumeren thing. I mean, I'm not the kid. The kid's not a traitor at all. If he's gonna play at Michigan State, let him come here. On top of that, I'm a big Michigan State guy, so I would love to steal anything I possibly could from Michigan. So I'm totally happy with him coming over. It's treasonous for coaches to leave. I agree with I'll basically be little Brian with that. I totally agree with Chapman on that.
Well, I mean, when you talk about being excited about getting Van Sumeren, it's not like he was anything at Michigan. He was a bench warmer on a bad defense. Now maybe Mel Tucker can turn him around because he's using that transport portal so much, but it's not like you're getting the next Chase Young or something like that.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm just happy to just claw into Michigan a little bit. That's all I want at the end of the day is just to hurt Michigan football. Yeah. So I'm totally fine with that.
Well, the way it hurts is that his brother is a highly sought-after defensive lineman, and it's tough to get defensive tackles, especially the highly rated ones. And, Alex Van Sumeren's a monster. So decommitting from Michigan, and he was there with his brother there. It doesn't take a genius or some kind of recruiting expert, to put some crystal ball together to say that he'll end up with Mel Tucker, which is what I expect, which would take a bite out of Michigan.
What I saw was that he's considering two schools. One is Brian Jelinek's Michigan State Spartans, and the other is my Penn State Nittany Lions.
Oh God, no! I can't let James Franklin coach that, man.
James Franklin has been raiding the state in the last couple of years.
Knowing the Van Sumerens, I'm surprised that the one's not going to Michigan State, the other one's not going to Ohio State. They're both going to Michigan. Let's go to their biggest rivals and then play against each other, which is weird.
Yeah.
That would be just like those guys. All right, what about these tags? Let's get to it.
All right, so I have a highly classified list for you guys. And obviously, the first one's pretty easy. Dak Prescott, what do you think should be done?
Go ahead, Cap. You first.
Yeah, I'll go first. And I think the Cowboys do need to tag him. Given the severity of his ankle injury, I think it would be it'd be kind of irresponsible to give him a monster deal because it hasn't fully recovered yet. If they give him a one-year deal for $37 million, that's a lot of money to test drive him and see how he looks. Perhaps by the summer before the franchise or the extension deadline ends, they'll be able to see that he's worthy of a multi-year deal worth $37 million a year. But as of right now, just tag him and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm going to say tag him and then trade him to the Seahawks for Russell Wilson. Like when you look at those the Bears, Saints, and the Raiders, all of those teams would have to give up such a truckload of picks to get Russell Wilson. But if you're the Cowboys, you're not going to have to give up. If you have a franchise quarterback to send to Seattle, I think that can get done. And my predictions, we're sitting here today, Wilson, quarterback for America's team, and Dak Prescott goes up to the Great Northwest.
God, that'd be a sight to see. All right, so going down south to the reigning World Series champions, the Bucs, who have $23 million in cap space. What do you guys think they should do with Shaquille Barrett?
The World Series or Super Bowl champions?
Did I say World Series? Excuse
Yes.
me. The reigning Super Bowl champions.
The Rays were in the World Series, so I'll say that.
I've been a big Tampa Bay Rays fan my whole life, so that was a bummer. But reigning Super Bowl champions.
I wouldn't tag Shaquille Barrett because I think their top priority should be Chris Godwin. I think that he's a top 10, maybe top 15 receiver, probably top 10. It seems like he wants to come back. If they can get a deal done with him first, then perhaps they can turn to Shaquille Barrett. But Tom Brady needs his weapon, so I would look to tag Chris Godwin first.
Well, it depends. Like, if you feel like you can get Antonio Bryant on some kind of deal, then it kind of makes Godwin expendable here. Shaq Barrett's awesome. As a sack master, his impact in the playoffs. I mean, you can really just see it, what was going on out there. Him and JPP. You got to be able to get the name of the game is being able to get pressure on the quarterback. Shaq Barrett, that's his game. You got to have him in a Bucs uniform next year. Tag him. Work on a long-term deal.
Totally agree. I think Godwin can walk. I'm not too worried about that. All right, so now we're going. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say they do have some depth at wide receiver to mess around with, but so maybe that's a fair point. I was going to say
Chapman's biased when it comes down to Allen Robinson, when it comes down to Chris Godwin, but we know that. What else?
Allen Robinson's our next guy. The Bears are over the cap at 1.95, but what do you guys think they should do with Robinson?
I would say tag him. One big concern here is that it appears that Allen Robinson does not want to stay with the Bears. He's been making some indications that he wants to leave. They don't have a bunch of great wide receiver options if he leaves, which I think would be the biggest reason to tag him. They don't have a great quarterback situation there. Perhaps they can change that by trading or drafting a quarterback in the next couple of months or so, but the Bears are a team that just made the playoffs, and I think that they need to try to build upon that and not gut their best offensive player.
Do you think Robinson would stay if they landed a solid quarterback, either through the draft or through free agency?
I'm not exactly sure what all the issues are with Robinson, so it doesn't seem like he wants to stay with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, the issues are that he doesn't have a quarterback and the offense is archaic, and he's the only guy out there, and he's had great years with a bunch of chumps playing QB. He's thinking, hey, man, get me with an all-pro quarterback, man. I could be a top 5, if not top 3 wide receiver in this league. I mean, that's how he's thinking. And I don't know, the Bears, where are they going to get? They're going to get Trey Lance, and you feel like he's going to be something? They just don't – I don't see a quarterback – What's the best case scenario? I know they want Deshaun Watson, but that's not going to happen because they'd have to gut their entire team. So yeah, I don't see a scenario where Allen Robinson's sitting around that wants to play for the Bears. Now, he gets tagged and they start pulling his money, and it ends up being a situation like that. He might begrudgingly be there in the Windy City, but he doesn't want to be. I wouldn't want to be either.
Yeah,
it'd be terrible to be there.
But they just made the playoffs.
Playoffs? I guess they did. It's weird.
And finally, we're going out west to the Los Angeles Chargers, who have $31.5 million in cap space. Hunter Henry, what are you doing with them?
He picked all the guys that I would tag, but I would tag him too. He had 60 catches last year, a very good year for a tight end. I think he's only 26 years old. He was obviously one of the favorite targets of Justin Herbert. I don't think you need to go around shaking too many things up. I thought it was a wrong decision to shake things up by getting rid of his head coach, who led them to a 7-9 year last year. So you're going to get rid of his head coach and then get rid of his tight end? That'd be stupid. So at least keep the tight end.
Long-term deal. You got to pay Hunter Henry. You're not letting him get out of there. He's awesome tight end, so you don't even have to tag him. Just work out a long-term deal. Let's get it going.
So you think he's worth $15 million, like what George Kittle's getting? Absolutely.
Well, I mean, free agency, the one thing you're going to overspend on a guy. He's not as good as George Kittle, but you got to have him. It's not unless you feel like you can get Kyle Pitts or something in there. But no, you want Hunter Henry. I know he's had some injury issue, concerns there. 15 sound once you start throwing that kind of number out there, that sounds pretty exorbitant. But you got to give all the pieces to Herbert that you can. And now they got the cap room. Figure something out. Keep Hunter Henry right there. And that's the thing for the Chargers here. They have what every team in the NFL wants: a young stud at quarterback on a rookie deal.
Cheap. Very cheap.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at some of these quarterbacks that are getting 35, their cap hits are $40 million. What's Herbert's? $7 million. I mean,
And I was saying for years on the radio, you got to get rid of Stafford and get a rookie so that they can try to win a championship with a quarterback on his rookie deal as opposed to the biggest salary in the world. And all these Lions fans are calling, you're just going to start over with a rookie? Stafford's so great. And what did it get them? A whole lot of money for Stafford and not a single playoff win. Meanwhile, you got Patrick Mahomes on his rookie deal leading the team to the Super Bowl.
On the feedback, Paul says Mel Kiper's mock trade has the Lions would get the 12th pick and a second rounder this year and next year. So moving back from 7,
take
Justin
that.
Fields was
take that
falling
deal.
in their lap. They move back to 12 and they get 2 seconds for doing that. You would do that?
Yes.
Dominic, would you do that too?
Heartbeat.
In a heartbeat, yeah. That's so easy.
Well, you guys just said, it's all about getting the quarterback right. And if you think Justin Fields is the best quarterback, then you pull the trigger there at 7. But you know what? If he is there, you are gonna. It's a great quandary to have. A situation like, hey, we can move back, accumulate a bunch of picks, or we can pull the trigger at number 7. If you think Fields is all of that, man, and he falls in your lap, you take him because you know what? You're getting all those picks anyways, and you're getting all this ammunition. With the number one thing that they have sitting over there in Sheila Hamp's office right there in the middle, when they all go in there, they can just look right up on the whiteboard is we need a quarterback. So if Fields is sitting there at 7, yeah, it's great getting all the ammunition. It depends. Like if your brain trust, if Holmes thinks that he's the man, then you pull the trigger and you take him.
I even if they like Justin Fields, I would pull the trigger on that deal because it appears that Holmes and company also like Goff because they traded for him after drafting him. So why not see what they have in Goff? And if after a year he doesn't work out, then you have that ammunition to move up and get somebody else.
Yeah, they love Goff so much that they're getting rid of Kelly Golladay. He's going to be throwing out there the Cephas and 3
because he's so
guys.
good, he doesn't need star receivers, right?
Exactly.
Right?
He's way too good.
Good luck with that. All right, let's get to the next chapter.
All right, thank you for joining us, Brian. We'll see you next time.
Good job,
Have a nice weekend, everybody.
All right,
Very
let's turn the
good
page now to the 5th chapter, and that takes us to the major wager. Dennis, remind us what you picked on Tuesday and what you're looking at tonight.
Well, I really don't want to remind you what I took on Tuesday because I took Illinois minus 6.5, and they got throttled by Michigan State. Tonight, I look, it's a new era with gambling now being legal, and I've always said, hey, you don't want to bet on your own team, or certainly you don't want to bet against your own team. Like that was always like my rule, and certainly my rule when it comes down to the Lions. First page in Fithian's gambling manifesto, never bet on or against the Lions. And right there, close to that is don't, bet on or against your favorite teams. But it's real now, right? You're trying to make money. It's not just about your team here. And I looked at tonight's Michigan-Iowa game, and I looked to Tuesday's game. I know Michigan plays Indiana this weekend. But I'm also looking at Tuesday's game against Illinois, and now Io DeSumo's out of that game. I liked Iowa tonight. I don't like Michigan to win the remaining 5 games. So I looked what's the most likely games they were going to lose. Well, Iowa and Illinois. I looked at Iowa tonight, and the Hawkeyes getting 5 points at the Chrysler Center. That seemed like a good bet to me. That was my pick. Betting against the Michigan Wolverines, my favorite team.
Wow. Yeah, on Tuesday, I picked the Atlanta Hawks minus 8 against the Cavs because the Cavs always get killed. And wouldn't you know, the Cavs won that game. And they won yesterday to make things even worse. Tonight, I'm taking a game that has not started yet. Doesn't start till 9, so there's still an opportunity for you to bet on it out there. And if you don't know how to bet, you can look at the link in YouTube and click on that so that you can get some free sports betting money from DraftKings. But I'm taking Idaho State. They're a plus 120 underdog, so you can get some real money here. They're playing Montana. I like Idaho State because they're at home, and Montana has had consecutive 14-point losses after their leading scorer entered the transfer portal a week and a half ago. So I would take Idaho State at home to the bank.
Hey, everybody's out there. What's Idaho State's nickname? Anybody?
They are some sort of, they're the Bengals.
The Bengals.
I think.
All right. Well, we'll see how that The only thing that's stranger than that is your nightly like 16 parlay that you always put up there. I just want to know.
Chappie's choice.
Do you bet those? Have you bet any of those for real?
Yes, but the dollar amount that I put up there, I don't bet that much, because every day I just for a sample, I say if you bet $10 you would make this much, but I don't think I've ever bet $10 on a 6 or a 17 parlay.
On Chappie's choice, okay.
For Chappie's choice, yes. So.
All right, well, we want to thank Brian Jelinek, everybody for watching, using the feedback and everything else. We'll do it again coming up. We're always here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We've done the 82 shows, and the only ones we've missed are on Christmas and Thanksgiving. And truth be told, I wanted to do a Thanksgiving show, but Chap was such a family-oriented man, said, I want to be there with my family on Thanksgiving.
I quit on the show.
So I said, you did, but you know what? That's not too bad. All right, for Jelinek and Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithian. We will talk with you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching the Fifth Chapter.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast, or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter.